All right. Well, thank you, Lauren. And hey, happy demo day, everyone. Yes, thank you. I want to hear that energy. Man, I hope you guys are as excited as I am. This is literally always one of my favorite days of the year. And I'm excited to get to introduce the program and tell you a little more about it. So as Lauren mentioned, I'm Tim Metzner. I'm chairman of the board and was lucky enough to be one of the founders of this amazing program. And I'm also an entrepreneur myself. So I run a company here locally, helped start and run a company called Differential. We're a digital innovation agency, fancy way of saying we help big companies learn how to act like startups. So that's fun. And probably most importantly, I should share with you, I'm a husband. So I've been married 10 years, going on 11. And actually, my amazing wife, Christy, is here, and I want to give her a quick shout out because as anyone who's married an entrepreneur knows, it is a lonely road as an entrepreneur's spouse as well. So thank you to Christy for her support. Yes, absolutely. And also, we are kind of doing the startup at home as well. Let me just tell you, having 4 kids in 5 years, every bit as difficult as starting any company I've been a part of. Seriously, it is a hard journey. So we are nonstop crazy, as you might imagine. Well, listen, I'm here because I wanted to tell you a little bit more about kind of the history of the program, where we came from, how we got to where we're at, and a little bit more about kind of where we're going, just as context. I know you didn't come to hear me, so I'll keep it as brief as I can. But I do want to start with a little bit of my story, which is sort of where we start. So about 5.5 years ago, in prayer, I kind of heard pretty clearly from God that it was time to quit my job and start a business. That sounds a little scary, and it was, but I had been thinking about this and praying about it for quite a while already. The problem was, what I heard was nothing clearly about a business plan or the thing I was supposed to do. It was like, it was time to leap. So I had a fairly awkward conversation with my wife, which she was very supportive of, and then I was kind of off and running. And one of the first things I realized was like, I kind of need a place to work, right? Like I need an office, a place to set up shop. And fortunately, I thought about this place where I'd had this pretty clear prayer moment, and it was like, oh yeah, the church I go to in Crossroads in Oakley, they have free coffee, they have free Wi-Fi, and their atrium is open all the time. Like, I don't know what else an entrepreneur needs to get started, right? So I did that literally like first 4 months of my company's history. We were at Crossroads, and it was awesome. The crazy part about that, we weren't the only ones doing that. There were other entrepreneurs hanging out, starting businesses out of our church. Pretty interesting. And that led to a fairly interesting conversation with the staff at Crossroads. It was like, hey, what are these guys doing hanging out here? And eventually it led to a breakfast with Brian Tome. Brian's a senior pastor at Crossroads, and he just wanted to get to know some of the entrepreneurs. So he hosted a breakfast at Crossroads, and I remember walking in and thinking like, that's interesting. Like, I know everyone in this breakfast, but I know them all from like the startup community and from my kind of entrepreneurial days. I had no idea that these folks also had a faith story. So that was kind of cool. And then as the morning went on, I remember feeling just kind of really interested in hearing the other stories that sounded a lot like a faith journey that had actually prepared that entrepreneur to make the leap into entrepreneurship. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. And then I think by the end of that breakfast, I think most of the folks there would have told you, like, there was kind of this energy and buzz. It was refreshing. It was literally the first time in my life, and I think for most of us, that we had talked about both our faith and entrepreneurship in the same breath. And that was really fun. And it was exciting. And we're entrepreneurs, so we started to think, I wonder if there's a market for this. Like, do you think anyone else would care about faith and entrepreneurship? So we decided to throw an event together. We called it Unpolished for a lot of reasons. Most importantly, we wanted to set the bar pretty low for expectations of this first event, if I'm honest with you. And honestly, like, I personally felt like, you know what, if we got 50 people to come, like, that would be really cool. Imagine 50 people talking about faith and entrepreneurship. That'd be pretty unique, right? And so God thinks bigger than that. And so he sent 400 people to that very first event in Oakley. And really quickly, I remember thinking, like, really glad we called this Unpolished because we ran out of beer right away. And pretty quickly, we ran out of chairs. So we totally were unprepared for this amazing event that God had in store for us. But the thing that was most fun to me about that night was the energy. There was an atmosphere and a buzz unlike any event I've been a part of, at least in the business world. And I think the best way I can explain it is it felt like God was smiling down on this. I think he was really pleased at the idea of literally hundreds of entrepreneurs getting together to talk about building businesses and their faith at the same time. That was pretty exciting. And because there was so much energy, we felt like we had to keep going. So we held another event, and then another event. And fast forward 6 months later, we sort of found ourselves in a spot where we kept throwing these events, and hundreds of entrepreneurs kept showing up, and they kept saying things like, we want more. Like, what else? Like, this is really awesome, but what else can you do? We want more than this. And so we took some time in prayer and kind of brainstorming and thought and said, like, what else should we do? And one of the things that came out of that very clearly was 3 of us sort of raised our hands. So myself, Tim Brunk, and Chad Reynolds, I think they're probably here today. We all said, like, hey, we want to start this. We want to run after an accelerator. We have some amazing accelerators in Cincinnati at the time, in Brandery and Uptech. And those guys get way more applications than they can take. And I will tell you, as a tech entrepreneur, like the pretty common narrative that you feel in that world is, if you want to be successful as a tech startup founder, the way to do it is this: go all in. Like all in. Like family, friendships, hobbies, faith, community, whatever it is, all that stuff needs to be put on pause for at least 5 years, maybe 10. Like you need to go run hard, right? And then, just maybe, at the end of that, you'll have an exit, right? You'll make all this money. It's going to be amazing. That might work for some people. That didn't work for the 3 of us and for that larger circle around us who said, like, hey, I absolutely want to be a successful founder. I'm going to run hard after that. I'm going to do whatever I can to do that. What I'm not going to do is do that at the expense of my marriage and at the expense of having kids that don't like me, right? Or of kind of ruining my faith and my friendships. That just wasn't an option for us. So we wanted to start something with a little bit of a different narrative. And that's why we ran after Ocean. And I got to tell you, it's just been a crazy story of provision. Here were 3 entrepreneurs, ourselves, pretty early in our own company's journeys. Like, I was less than a year into starting my own company, Differential. And so there was a lot I didn't know yet. And I had certainly never started an accelerator before. But man, God just showed up at every turn. When we needed funding to invest in the companies, he sent us investors. When we needed a staff to run this thing, he sent us Scott Weiss to run it as CEO. When we needed volunteers to run events, they came. When we needed funding for a nonprofit, it showed up. And this was not us, guys. We were running our own businesses. There was very little we could control in this thing. But God just kept showing up. And man, here we are, our 4th demo day. This is crazy. It's unbelievable to me. And it's exciting to see both what the entrepreneurs' lives we've touched throughout Ocean and the lives we've touched at Unpolished. You see, as we continue to run after Ocean, now at our 4th demo day, we also kept running after Unpolished. There was a group of volunteers still running Unpolished who had also launched a conference. We said, man, there is nowhere else in the world to gather people together in one big day of inspiration to bring amazing speakers in to build in the entrepreneurs. It's just not happening. So we were excited to do that in Unpolished. So we found ourselves last year at this point where we had this awesome nonprofit and this accelerator helping tech companies. And we had this kind of volunteer thing called Unpolished that we were throwing together as we could. And yet we felt like there was way more we could do with Unpolished. So last year we started to formally merge the 2 together. And after some, in true startup fashion, kind of testing, learning, killing some stuff, launching some new stuff, we realized, like, I think we're onto something. I think we've got a big vision for where we're going. And I'm excited to share the next wave of that journey. Today, we are officially sunsetting the Unpolished brand. We're becoming one singular brand with one mission. And our mission is to increase the awareness of God in the marketplace by building into entrepreneurs. We're excited to run after entrepreneurs, and really 3 distinct types of entrepreneurs we serve today. The tech entrepreneurs I already talked about, small business entrepreneurs. This is probably the largest segment of entrepreneurs out there, and certainly the fastest growing. It's also where most of the jobs come from. And by the way, it's probably the most underserved segment of entrepreneurship. And the third was me 5 years ago. That guy standing on a ledge saying, like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm ready to make the leap, I think, but I just don't know what the next step looks like. And that feels scary and uncertain to me. And we want to run after them when they do, because here's the deal. Entrepreneurship is hard. Whether you're starting a tech company or a small business or a salon, whatever it might be, the deck is stacked against you. As soon as you take that step out to start that business, we know you're more likely to fail than you are to succeed. And that's where Ocean wants to meet entrepreneurs. Because despite the odds against us, we're wired to go. We step out boldly and run after businesses. And we want to run after entrepreneurs who are running after those businesses. Because we believe if we can change just one entrepreneur's trajectory and help them have a successful business, man, that might just change the community that they're in. And think, if we start to do that in multiple communities across the city, we might just change the culture of a city. And we're really excited to keep running after entrepreneurs here in Cincinnati and in Northern Kentucky in our region. And I gotta tell you, I think God has a bigger vision for us. I think he wants us to run after entrepreneurs across the world, because there is no one else serving entrepreneurs and standing in that intersection of faith and entrepreneurship. And we believe if we can do that, man, we might just change the world. And we're excited to run after that. So as I talk about this intersection of faith and entrepreneurship, in a room like this, I feel pretty confident that you'll understand the entrepreneurship piece, right? You know what that means, right? The faith part, maybe that's a little more fuzzy to you. So let me just take a minute to unpack that and tell you what that means for us. See, we believe we serve a large creative God. We serve the ultimate creator, the being that created everything around us, right? Not only that, he sent us the greatest entrepreneur that's ever lived in Jesus. This guy created this movement in Christianity more than 2,000 years ago that still today stands and impacts all parts of our society in amazing ways. All that to say, we think God is about entrepreneurship, and we think he actually implanted some really deep biblical wisdom to serve entrepreneurs. And that can be a little hard to unpack on your own. That's what we're here to do at Ocean. We're here to help distill biblical truth and practical teaching to help you understand how to be a better entrepreneur and a better person. And so we run after kind of 7 core continents of faith. That was the slide I had up there before. Things like purpose and bravery and community and discipline and perseverance and creativity. We're going to weave this into everything we do at Ocean and help make sure entrepreneurs grow in these ways. So how are we actually serving entrepreneurs? Well, 3 distinct ways: training, inspiration, and community. So when I say training, that's things like this, right? This is the culmination of Ocean Accelerator, a training program built for tech entrepreneurs. We also have a training program built for small business entrepreneurs, and we have regular workshops teaching very specific practical lessons that folks can attend. We also think about community in everything we do. You're surrounded by hundreds of amazing stories and entrepreneurs today, and I hope you take a minute to get to meet some of them, because we know that entrepreneurship is a lonely road. So we're about gathering folks. And in fact, every second Tuesday, we do that very intentionally. This is a chance to just step back, have a beer, meet some other entrepreneurs, catch up with your friends, and really just spend time in community. And then finally, inspiration. We love big gatherings. I hope thousands of people are watching this today, because where else in the world are thousands of people hearing about both faith and entrepreneurship but here? That's why we love Demo Day, and we love the Unpolished Conference, and we'll keep running after big, inspiring events for entrepreneurs. So that's what we're about here at Ocean. And I hope that excites you. If it does, we'd love to have you on our team. We want to have you a part of our tribe. Easiest way to figure out how to get plugged in, whether that's as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a mentor, as a supporter, go to oceanprograms.com/join, and we'll figure that out. Or find one of us wearing an Ocean t-shirt today and tell us your story. We'll get you plugged in. Well, I know you guys are excited to hear pitches, but there's a few things before we get to that. The first is I get to introduce a friend of mine and our gracious host today. Terry Phillips is the campus pastor right here at Crossroads Florence, and he's also an amazing dude. So folks, please help me welcome Terry to the stage.